I have a friend in London who's a rare book dealer. And when I'm in London, I'm usually able to contrive a situation where he has to have some errand out. And so then I'm left alone for hours with the book inside these multiple concentric circles of security. And I can open up all the cases and pour through this stuff. And it's astonishing. I mean, the cul-de-sacs into which the human mind wanders, phlogiston theory, the Chaldean oracles, the Wunderkammer, the hollow earth thing, and then all this literature of exploration. I mean, the stratigraphy of human experiences, maps and machines and diaries and blueprints, and out of all this, there can be a pattern, that there's a kind of an epiphany, a kind of sense of order of cause does and isn't chaos. Well, that's a Hindu notion of this same thing, essentially, this platonic superdimension where all and everything is suspended in place. If you ever want to have a very bizarre sub-psychedelic experience when you're in Oxford, go to the Pitt Rivers Museum. Everybody goes to the actual of course you should. But on the kinkier side, the Pitt Rivers Museum, Pitt Rivers was an early ethnographer in England, and into one of those Victorian cast metal and glass ceiling buildings, he gathered hundreds of millions of objects classified by category. So, there are like 50,000 needles from all over the world in drawers, 10,000 pairs of pliers from all over the world, from all times and on and on. And they're in drawers which you can open, and the stuff is stacked up 20 feet high. And you realize that it's a concentration of manas, it's a concressence. There's one section where there are over 200 drawers labeled magical amulets. And you open these drawers and look, magical amulets, southern Iraq, magical amulets, Syria, and on and on. Very bizarre. That to me is, searching for patterns through the detritus of human history, because I really think that we are caught up in a relationship with something very, very mysterious. I don't like religious vocabulary, but an epiphany is taking place. Something, consciousness is really important, and it is using the stuff of biology to create some kind of new order in nature.
Sex and drugs and rock and roll, I mean, these things seem to be pretty intimately linked. In other words, acoustical driving, sexual license, and pharmacological disruption of ordinary brain states. This is what religion was about for the first couple of million years. And then, beady-eyed eunuchs got a hold of it. Weasels, I mean, people you wouldn't leave alone with your chickens took charge. And have been in charge ever since. So
The concept of sex, drug, and rock and roll is always communal. It's always honest. It's not solitary. And it seems like the technological revolution is lots of solitary efforts. Sitting at a computer screen, sitting at home watching TV, putting earphones on with your Walkman. All that stuff seems to be more of the great barrier to life.
virtual community is coming into existence. I'm not that keen to make that point. I do think that any activity that you can participate in that does not involve matter is a good thing. So it's better to access the well than to drive 60 miles to see a friend. But I'm not an enthusiast of teledildonics and some of the more exotic technological sexual schemes that have been cooked up. The electronic network, the ultimate effect of all this electronic technology, I think, is to encourage diversity. I think that, this is a favorite beef of mine, but I think that it profits people to go back and read Marshall McLuhan, that McLuhan was never assimilated, he was simply dismissed. At the same time that psychedelic drugs were suppressed, McLuhan ceased to be ever mentioned in the academy, and that he very, very brilliantly explained the impact of media on cultural dynamics. And by media, we mean any technology, from the screwdriver to LSD. Technologies change the societies that use them, always in ways that the society cannot anticipate and expect. And so I think computers are really driving a lot of this archaic tribalism. I mean, obviously. Anything else anybody wants to talk about before? Yeah. You mean in the Buddhist sense of enlightenment? Well, this sort of goes to this question which we've talked about along other avenues of approach, which is the question, do psychedelics have anything to do with so-called spirituality? Enlightenment, well, there are different notions of what enlightenment is, first of all. I mean, there's a soft version, a kind of Protestant version, where people say, well, enlightenment is something which comes and goes from each of us many times a day. If we could but cling to it, we would know it, and it is, our absent friend weaving in and out of ordinary experience. That's the soft version of enlightenment. But then, there's a hard version of enlightenment, which says if a single sentient being attains enlightenment for a single nanosecond anywhere in the kiliocosm of eternity, then all sentient beings will instantly be sucked into the presence of the paranirvana, and the illusion of space and time will collapse, and the tathagata will be imminent, and so forth and so on. I sort of like the hard version because it makes it easier to know when you're in the presence of it. It was, I don't know. I mean, this is an interesting question. I suppose, they do. An Orthodox Buddhist of the hardcore sort, I think they're fairly contemptuous of psychedelicos, and what they would lay on us is that we are obsessed with samsara, that our love of the 10,000 things will forever stand between us and union with the undescribable, unutterable, Platonian non-entity outside of all realms of description and anticipation and so forth and so on. Probably true. It's just that, buying into that thing exists at all is a major step. And, I'm willing to play the Pied Piper there. I'm interested in the 10,000 things. What thrills me are museums full of butterflies and libraries full of books and galleries full of paintings and parties full of women and just the multiplicity of things. And that's what psychedelics seem to celebrate.